November 1950, the Korean peninsula is locked in a frozen nightmare. Temperatures plunge to 30 degrees below zero. Snow lashes across jagged mountains like shards of glass, and deep in the heart of North Korea, at the Chosin Reservoir, 15,000 American Marines and soldiers are completely surrounded by more than 100,000 Chinese troops. Outnumbered, outgunned, cut off from the world. This is the frozen Chosin, one of the most brutal battles in American military history. But in the middle of this hell on earth, an unlikely savior appears. Not a new weapon, not a brilliant general's masterstroke, but a simple piece of candy, the Tootsie Roll. Welcome to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most bizarre, heroic, and heartwarming stories of the Korean War. How Tootsie Rolls saved the lives of U.S. Marines at the frozen Chosin. This is a 40-minute journey through courage, improvisation, and the power of a little sweetness in the face of unimaginable horror. Let's begin. To understand how candy ended up saving lives, we have to set the stage. The Korean War kicked off in June 1950 when North Korean forces stormed across the 38th parallel into South Korea. The United States, leading a United Nations coalition, rushed to the defense. By late October, UN forces under General Douglas MacArthur had pushed the North Koreans almost to the Chinese border. Victory seemed close. MacArthur dreamed of reuniting Korea and even talked about being home by Christmas. But China had other plans. Mao Zedong feared American troops on his doorstep. In secret, hundreds of thousands of Chinese soldiers, officially called the People's Volunteer Army, crossed the Yalu River into North Korea. They moved only at night, camouflaged in white snowsuits, avoiding detection. Then, on November 27, 1950, they struck. The target, the U.S. X-Corps around the Chosin Reservoir, a massive man-made lake high in the Taebaek Mountains. The 1st Marine Division, commanded by Major General Oliver P. Smith, was spread thin along a single, narrow, winding road. Smith had misgivings about the rapid advance north. He famously told his superiors, "Retreat? Hell, we're just attacking in another direction." Those words would soon become legendary. The Chinese attacked in overwhelming human waves. Bugles blared, whistles shrieked, soldiers charged uphill through the snow, wave after wave. The temperature was so low that weapons jammed, oil froze, and blood plasma turned to ice in medical bags. Frostbite claimed more casualties than bullets in some units. Within days, the Marines were completely encircled. 15,000 Americans against roughly 120,000 Chinese. Supplies dwindled fast. Ammunition, food, medical gear, everything. Airdrops became their lifeline. Planes flew dangerous missions in blinding snow to parachute crates onto tiny drop zones. But every request had to be coded to prevent enemy interception. And that's where the confusion began. Marines on the front lines desperately needed 60mm mortar rounds, vital for breaking up Chinese assaults. In the military code used at the time, the term for those mortar shells was Tootsie Rolls. Why Tootsie Rolls? No one knows for sure. Maybe because the rounds were small and cylindrical. Maybe it was just random jargon. Whatever the reason, a radio operator sent an urgent message: "Drop more Tootsie Rolls, we're running low." Back at the supply depot, or possibly at a rear headquarters, the message was taken literally. Someone heard Tootsie Rolls and thought candy. Pallets were loaded with actual Tootsie Roll candies, thousands of them, and pushed out the doors of cargo planes. When the Marines ripped open the crates, the reaction was a mix of disbelief, anger, and eventually laughter.
One veteran later said, "We thought the Air Force was trying to finish us off with sugar shock." But in sub-zero temperatures, where sea rations froze into solid bricks and even coffee turned to slush, the Tootsie Rolls proved to be a miracle. First, they didn't freeze solid. The chewy taffy texture meant Marines could warm them in their mouths, under their helmets, or in their armpits until they softened. They became the main source of calories for days. High sugar content gave quick energy when men were burning thousands of calories just staying alive in the cold. But the real genius came next. When warmed, Tootsie Rolls turned soft and sticky, almost like putty. Marines discovered they could use the melted candy to patch bullet holes in fuel lines, radiators, jerry cans, and even vehicle hoses. Once exposed to the freezing air again, the candy hardened into a tough seal. Jeeps, trucks, and generators that would have been abandoned kept running because of Tootsie Roll patches. One Marine recalled stuffing a handful into a punctured gas tank, letting it freeze overnight, and driving the vehicle the next morning. Another used them to plug leaks in water cans, vital when dehydration was a constant threat.
The fighting withdrawal from Chosin lasted from December 1 to December 11, 1950. The Marines fought through 11 major Chinese roadblocks. They carried their wounded and their dead, no one left behind. They destroyed equipment they couldn't take so it wouldn't fall into enemy hands, and through it all, they kept those Tootsie Rolls close. At Tong Pass, a small force of just 240 men from Fox Company held off thousands of Chinese for 5 freezing nights, buying precious time for the main column. Their commander, Captain William Barber, earned the Medal of Honor. At WWII, engineers built an airstrip under constant fire, allowing wounded to be evacuated and supplies to come in, including more of those famous candies. By the time the survivors reached the port of Hungnam on December 11th, the 1st Marine Division had inflicted devastating losses on the Chinese. Estimates range from 40 to 80,000 casualties, many from the cold itself. American losses were heavy, over 3,000 killed, 6,000 wounded, and thousands more crippled by frostbite. But the Marines had pulled off one of the greatest fighting withdrawals in military history. And they did it with frozen rifles, frozen feet, and pockets full of Tootsie Rolls. The legend grew over the decades. Veterans at chosen few reunions would pass around Tootsie Rolls like communion wafers. Tootsie Roll Industries embraced the story and for years sent free cases to veterans groups. There's even a display about it at the National Museum of the Marine Corps. Some historians debate the details. Was there really a code mix-up, or were Tootsie Rolls simply a standard ration item prized for not freezing? Stockpiles existed at forward bases, and candy was often included in drops for morale. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, but the core remains. Tootsie Rolls provided calories, warmth, makeshift repairs, and hope when everything else failed. Veterans themselves never stopped telling the story. Corporal Harry Cohn, "We cursed when we saw them, then we thanked God for every one." Private First Class Robert Ezell, "I'd thaw one under my arm while manning the machine gun. That sugar rush kept me alert." Another Marine said, "In that frozen hell, a little chocolate felt like heaven." The Chosin campaign became a defining moment for the Marine Corps, a testament to adaptability, loyalty, and unbreakable spirit. General Smith's calm leadership, the pilots who flew through blizzards, the engineers who built bridges under fire, all played their part. But the Tootsie Roll story captures something uniquely American, turning a mistake into a lifesaver through sheer ingenuity. Today, some Marines still carry Tootsie Rolls in their packs as a good luck tradition. The chosen few hold annual reunions, though their numbers grow smaller each year. Their monument in Dallas stands as a reminder: courage comes in many forms, even wrapped in wax paper. So the next time you unwrap a Tootsie Roll, think of those young men in the snow 75 years ago, fighting for every inch of frozen ground, sharing a piece of candy that helped them bring home. This has been the story of the frozen Chosin and the candy that helped save the Marines. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into an incredible piece of history, hit that like button, subscribe for more untold war stories, and let me know in the comments what's the craziest survival story you've ever heard. Until next time, stay warm, stay curious, and maybe keep a Tootsie Roll handy. You never know when you might need it.